They've always been the ones in control, unbeatable, untouchable, and always one step ahead. No one has ever outsmarted them. No one has ever even come close. Their confidence is unshakable, their dominance unquestioned. Until now, you enter the game. You see what others couldn't, you move where they didn't expect, and suddenly their flawless strategy begins to crumble. For the first time ever, they're facing someone they can't outthink, outmaneuver, or outplay. This fall, the tables turn, and for them, it's going to be hard. The reign of the unbeatable ends here. They had total control, effortless, unchallenged. Every move was precise, every word calculated. No one ever saw through them. No one ever dared to question. They didn't need brute force. They had something better, manipulation. A slow, deliberate game designed to keep people exactly where they wanted them. They knew how to make you feel special. Love bombing, intense affection, endless compliments, promises of forever. They made you believe you were different, the one they had been waiting for, the one who finally understood them. Then came the shift. A subtle insult disguised as a joke, a raised eyebrow at something you once felt confident about. Doubt crept in. Are you sure you remember that right? You always overthink things. I never said that. Gaslighting. They twisted reality until you couldn't trust your own mind. Confusion kept you compliant. You searched for the person they were in the beginning, the one who adored you, the one who made you feel safe. But that version of them never existed. They controlled through scarcity, giving just enough to keep you hooked. A well-placed compliment, a sudden burst of affection after days of cold silence, a perfectly timed, "I miss you." Push, pull, hot, cold, reward, punishment, mind games. The moment you pulled back, they reeled you in, making sure you never got too far. They didn't just do this in relationships. It was everywhere. Friends, family, co-workers, no one was immune. They controlled conversations, shifted blame effortlessly, crafted an image that no one dared to question. They convinced people they were lucky to be chosen. This was their power, the ability to make people doubt themselves while putting them on a pedestal. No one had ever broken free. No one had ever turned the game against them. They never had to change, because it always worked, until you. They walked in with confidence. Same tricks, same plan, same belief that this would be easy. They studied you, measured your reactions, calculated every word, every pause, every carefully timed compliment. You didn't flinch. Something felt off. Their first mistake. They underestimated you. They thought you were like the rest, someone who would fall in line, someone who would play their game without realizing it. They were wrong. You saw through them early. The fake charm, the subtle tests, the push-pull cycle designed to keep you guessing. You didn't bite. They tried harder, love-bombed you with attention, went silent to make you crave their presence, threw out hooks, expecting you to chase. You didn't. Panic flickered beneath their mask. They weren't used to this. They had always been 10 steps ahead. They had always dictated the pace, controlled the dynamic, set the rules. This time, nothing was working. You weren't desperate for their approval. Their validation meant nothing. They tried to plant doubt, to make you second-guess yourself. It didn't stick. You knew your worth. You didn't beg, didn't explain yourself, didn't fight for a place in their world. You simply stood still, unmoved, unbothered, unshaken. That's when they felt it, the shift. For the first time, they weren't in control. They threw everything at you. Silent treatments, then sudden affection. Subtle jabs, then apologies wrapped in excuses. Plans made, then broken, then remade, just to keep you off balance. You stayed calm. They tested you, ignored your messages to see if you'd spiral, flirted with others to see if you'd react, created drama just to see if you'd fight to keep them. You did nothing. That's when the panic set in. The script was flipping. They weren't sure how or why, But something wasn't working. Their tactics felt dull. Their charm, powerless. They tried everything. They went silent, waiting for the frantic messages that never came. They threw breadcrumbs, hoping you'd pick them up. They made you the villain, expecting you to defend yourself. Nothing worked. You weren't playing. The moment they realized it, everything crumbled. They were always the one in control, always the one setting the pace. But this time, they were the one left waiting, the one confused, the one chasing. This wasn't how it was supposed to go. They never saw it coming. For the first time in their life, they lost control. They always won. Always. No one had ever flipped the game on them. No one had ever made them question themselves. Until you. They built their identity on being the smartest, the most strategic, the one who controlled every outcome. This time, they were behind. You weren't playing by their rules. You weren't playing at all. They thought they were leading, but every move they made backfired. You gave them nothing to work with. No emotional reactions, no desperate attempts to hold on. Just silence. They pushed. You didn't move. They tried to create chaos. You remained steady. They threw bait. You ignored it. This was new for them, unfamiliar, terrifying. For the first time, they felt what they had spent years making others feel. Doubt, confusion, powerlessness. They replayed every interaction, trying to find where they lost control. It didn't make sense. They had been in charge. Right? The more they analyzed, the worse it got. You played no games, yet you won. You said nothing, yet they heard everything. You exposed them without even trying. They were spiraling, losing grip, losing confidence, losing the power they once held so easily. This was never supposed to happen. They had been untouchable, but this time, they lost. They told themselves it was a fluke, a one-time mistake. They tried to shake it off, regain their footing, return to the game. But something had shifted. The confidence they once wore like armor, gone. They weren't thinking ahead anymore. They were reacting, overanalyzing, second-guessing. Their usual tricks weren't landing. Their usual charm wasn't working. People around them noticed the cracks, the hesitation, the uncertainty. They couldn't fake it anymore. The worst part, you didn't even fight them. You didn't argue. You didn't beg. You just left. That's what shattered them. They had built their power on the idea that no one could walk away, that no one could resist the pull. But you did, easily. That shook them to their core. They needed to know why. Why didn't you chase? Why didn't you break? Why weren't you falling apart without them? They obsessed over it. Checked your social media. Asked mutual friends about you. Watched from the shadows, hoping for signs of regret. There were none. That's when they realized the truth. They hadn't just lost you. They had lost themselves. They were used to holding the power, but now they felt powerless. Every attempt to reassert control failed. You weren't biting. You weren't reacting. You had moved on. That was the real defeat. Not losing you, but losing their ability to control the narrative. The fall had begun, and it was only going to get worse. They've never been the one left behind, never been the one ignored. This was new. The silence burned. The lack of control stung. They weren't used to chasing, weren't used to questioning themselves. But here they were, spiraling. They told themselves you'd come back, any day now, any moment. You didn't. Days passed, weeks. The reality set in. They lost. Panic hit. They had built their life around control. Every relationship, every interaction, carefully managed. This wasn't just about you. This was about their identity. If they weren't the one in power, then who were they? They couldn't process it, couldn't accept it. So they searched for answers. checked your social media, read old conversations, replayed every interaction. They needed to know what went wrong, needed to know why you weren't suffering like they were. Every attempt to move on failed. The old tactics didn't work. The charm didn't land. People sensed something was off. The cracks were showing, the confidence gone, the power slipping. They tried to fake it, forced smiles, exaggerated stories, staged happiness. It wasn't enough. The mask was crumbling. Desperation set in. They reached out, subtly at first. A random text, a comment on something they'd ignored before. You didn't respond. They tried harder. Dramatic gestures, grand apologies, promises of change. Nothing worked. The control they once had, completely gone. So they turned to blame. It wasn't their fault. Couldn't be. You were cold. You were ungrateful. You had changed. They painted themselves as the victim, told mutual friends half-truths, twisted the narrative, played up their pain, hoping for sympathy, hoping for a reaction. They didn't miss you. They missed their power over you. Without it, they were nothing. They weren't ready for this. For the first time, they were experiencing real loss. A loss they couldn't fix, manipulate, or control. A loss they had never faced before. The game had ended. You had won. They had spent a lifetime winning. Every game, every battle, every manipulation, flawless. Until now. Something was different, off, wrong. People noticed. Their energy had changed. The confidence felt forced. The charm wasn't landing like before. They laughed too loud, over-explained too much, tried too hard to seem the same. They weren't. The power they once held, slipping. They told themselves it was temporary, that they would recover, that this was just a small misstep. It wasn't. Their reputation was built on never losing, always being in control, always staying ahead. But this time, there was proof they lost. You. Did you know the Obsidian Inner Order is the #1 ascension, nexus for chosen ones? Well, now you do. But here's something you might not know. Joining the Inner Order gets you access to weekly group calls with over 450 fellow chosen ones. And we record them so you can catch up anytime. Our private Discord? It's not just active, it's a treasure trove of the world's most fascinating conversations. We're talking deep dives into occult knowledge, spiritual techniques, targeted individuals, diet optimization, and everything you need to fine-tune your ascension. This is where chosen ones gather to exchange wisdom, elevate one another, and tap into the kind of insights you won't find on YouTube, or anywhere else for that matter. And for the seekers, dive into modern manifestation mechanics, our exclusive grimoire, with 3 chapters available to members. Learn how to turn your home into an abundance magnet, master basic spellcraft for physical manifestation, and channel magical forces to elevate your goals. Plus, you'll get access to interviews with real targeted individuals and video specials so bold, the YouTube archons don't even want you to see them. This is more than a membership, it's a movement. So what are you waiting for? Stop searching. Start ascending. The link is in the description. You left without begging, without pleading, without looking back. That had never happened before. They tried to rewrite the story, downplay what happened, convince others, convince themselves that you never mattered. No one bought it. The people around them saw the cracks, the hesitation, the desperation creeping in. They weren't the same. They searched for a way to regain control. Something. Anything. Every attempt failed. They tried to replace you. A rebound, a distraction, a new supply. It wasn't the same. The new person sensed something was off. The energy was different. The power wasn't there. They felt it too. The control they once had over people. Weakening. The games weren't as sharp. The tricks weren't as smooth. People they had manipulated before were seeing through them. The whispers started. What happened to them? They don't seem the same. They're not as powerful anymore. Their worst fear was becoming reality. They were losing everything. Not just you, their influence, their hold, their entire identity. This fall wasn't just personal. It was public. For the first time, they weren't feared. They weren't admired. They were just another person who lost. The unthinkable had happened. The unbeatable had fallen. The damage was spreading. They had built their world like a house, of cards, delicate, dependent, easily shattered. Your departure was the first gust of wind. Now, the whole structure was collapsing. They tried to mask the panic, posturing, overcompensating, trying to act like they were still untouchable. It wasn't working. The people who once worshipped them were starting to doubt. Doubt was dangerous. Doubt meant questions. Questions meant scrutiny. Scrutiny meant exposure. For the first time, people were seeing them for what they really were. Not brilliant, not powerful. Just a manipulator who finally lost control. They felt it happening but couldn't stop it. They reached for old tactics, tried to gaslight, guilt trip, charm their way back into power. The magic was gone. Everywhere they turned, the same energy shift. What once worked effortlessly now felt forced. The mask was slipping. The worst part? You weren't even there to witness it. You were gone, moving forward, thriving, unaffected. That's what destroyed them the most, not just the loss. The fact that you didn't care. This wasn't how it was supposed to go. They were the one who left people broken, lost, begging for closure. But this time, they were the ones spiraling. This time, they were the ones stuck in the past. This time, they lost, and they knew it. The universe was watching, keeping score. They thought they were untouchable, thought they could move through life without consequences. They were wrong. Everything they did was coming back. Every lie, every manipulation, every betrayal, returning like a boomerang. Karma wasn't just knocking, it was kicking down the door. The control they once had, gone. People were slipping through their fingers. The ones who once adored them were seeing the truth. The charm wasn't landing. The influence was fading. They had spent years making others feel powerless. Now they were the one losing grip. Every move backfired. Every attempt to rebuild failed. They reached for old tricks, played the same games, but something had changed. People weren't falling for it. The whispers grew louder. The mask was off. They were losing respect, losing status, losing the illusion they had carefully crafted. They had ruled through fear, confusion, control. Now, no one feared them. No one listened. They were scrambling, watching everything slip away. The worst part, they couldn't stop it. They were used to being the predator. Now, they were the prey. The games had worked for so long, the mind tricks, the manipulation, the deceit. Now they were playing alone. People saw them differently. They weren't special anymore. They were just another manipulator, another fraud. The universe wasn't done yet. They were watching you rise, seeing you thrive, knowing you had escaped. That stung the most. They had tried to break you, tried to make you need them, but you didn't. You were doing better, smiling, growing, winning, while they were sinking. Everywhere they turned, doors were closing. Their name didn't hold weight anymore. Their power was slipping. What once came easily was now a struggle. Every trick that once worked was crumbling beneath them. They had spent so long controlling others. Now they couldn't even control their own downfall. This was never supposed to happen. They were supposed to be unstoppable, untouchable. Instead, they were falling hard, and this time no one was there to catch them. They didn't realize it at first. Thought they could recover, thought they could replace you, thought they could move on like they always did. They were wrong. Something had shifted. Their energy was different, weaker, off. People sensed it. The ones they once controlled weren't as easily swayed. The ones who once admired them weren't as quick to defend them. The usual tricks felt hollow, forced, ineffective. They tried to gaslight, it didn't work. They tried to guilt trip, no one cared. They tried to regain control. They couldn't. Their presence no longer commanded the same attention. Their words no longer carried the same weight. People weren't drawn in, they were pulling away. The shift was real. They felt it in conversations, the side glances, the awkward silences, the lack of fear in people's eyes. The fear was gone, and without fear, they had nothing. They tried to mask it. Tried to pretend, forced laughter, overcompensated with exaggerated confidence. It wasn't working. Behind closed doors, they felt the emptiness. The power was slipping through their fingers. The control was fading. This wasn't just about you. This was about who they were becoming. A shell of their former self. A desperate shadow of the person they once pretended to be. Their confidence? Gone. Their ability to manipulate, fading. Their once loyal followers, questioning. Their new connections weren't sticking. People weren't staying. Every new attempt at control fell apart faster than the last. They used to thrive on admiration, on attention, on people needing them. Now, no one needed them. They looked in the mirror and saw someone they didn't recognize. The person who once held all the cards was fumbling, losing grip, losing power, losing themselves. Their greatest fear wasn't rejection, it wasn't even failure. It was being exposed. People were seeing them clearly. No more illusions, no more mind games, just the truth. And the truth was devastating. They weren't powerful. They weren't special. They were just another manipulator who finally got caught. This was bigger than heartbreak, bigger than ego. This was their identity unraveling. For the first time, they weren't controlling the narrative. The story was writing itself, and it ended with their downfall. You already won. There's nothing left to prove, nothing left to explain. Silence is your final move. They will try to return. They always do. Expect the messages, the apologies, the attempts to rekindle something you already buried. Ignore them. They don't miss you. They miss control. Every word they send is a test, a trap, a desperate attempt to reopen a door that was meant to stay closed. Don't take the bait. They will try different angles. Nostalgia, guilt, fake self-awareness. They'll claim they've changed, that they see the truth now, that you were always the one they should have chosen. Lies. They don't want you back. They want their power back. Stay firm. Stay silent. The real victory isn't proving them wrong. It's showing them they never had power over you to begin with. Move forward without looking back. Your energy is valuable. Protect it. You will be tested. Others like them will appear. New faces, same tactics. You'll recognize the signs this time. The red flags won't look like love anymore. Trust yourself. Trust your instincts. This was never just about them. This was about you stepping into your true power. The way you carry yourself has changed. The way you see the world has shifted. You no longer attract manipulators. You repel them. They sense it. They know you are untouchable now. That is your true victory. Not revenge, not proving a point. Just living, thriving, winning without them. This was never just about them. It was about breaking the cycle, ending the pattern, walking away without wounds, only wisdom. You didn't just escape, you transformed. They expected you to fall apart, to come crawling back. You didn't. You rose, you thrived, you became everything they tried to destroy. Their power was built on illusions, lies, control. Your power, unshakable. No more second-guessing, no more explaining, no more shrinking yourself to make others comfortable. This is who you were meant to be. The version of you they feared. The one they tried to suppress. It's too late for them. They can't touch you now. Their downfall is theirs alone. Their loss is permanent. You don't have to do anything. Their karma is watching you succeed, watching you smile, watching you live without them. That's the real punishment. They will try to rewrite the story, convince themselves it was different. It won't change. The truth: you won, completely, finally, forever. The unbeatable has fallen. The cycle is broken. This victory isn't just yours. It belongs to everyone who refuses to be controlled again. You are free. You are untouchable. And you will never fall for their kind again. They had never been outsmarted, never been outplayed. Until you. They thought they were invincible, thought no one could see through them. But you did. You exposed them without lifting a finger, without saying a word. They tried everything to break you, to manipulate you, to keep you trapped in their game. Nothing worked. You walked away untouched, unbothered, unshaken. That's what destroyed them. Their power was built on deception, lies, control. Your power, real, permanent, untouchable. This wasn't just a loss for them. It was a reckoning. The end of their reign, the start of your new beginning. The cycle is broken. The past is gone. The unbeatable has fallen. And you have won.